So one of the biggest requests I get for a video lately is a comparison between the ST43, the Sea Dweller from Rolex, and the Deepsea, the bigger one, the James Cameron in this case. So I've got both side by side here on my table, and I've also included a regular Submariner just for comparison. So let's take a look at all three dive watches from Rolex side by side. So here we have all three. We've got the Submariner here, the 41mm, the no-date version, or the regular Submariner as people call it. Then we've got the Sea Dweller 43, the 50th anniversary. And then of course we have the big beast here, the Sea Dweller Deepsea, also known as the James Cameron with the kind of blue dial. The references on these are 12, 40, 60. So that's the latest iteration of the no-date sub. This is the 126600, and this is the 116660. This is the first one that was released in the James Cameron in 2014. So let's have a look at the real world differences between all three watches. Starting, of course, with the Submariner. This is the no-date version, considered the purest sub. And it's got everything you need. It is a dive watch, so it's 300 meters. Water resistance as long as you keep that crown screwed in. Ceramic bezel with the platinum inserts. All the numbers are in platinum. And then, of course, the dial has white gold indices with lume in the center. And the hands are also white gold. So no oxidation is going to happen as the years go by. It's got a 120 click bezel with zero backplay. I mean, zero. Sometimes on cheaper watches, you feel a little bit of give in the other direction, but not with Rolex, guys. These are some of the best built watches in the world. 48 mils across in wingspan. Some people like to say wingspan. It's lug to lug. Some people also say this is lug to lug. So which one is lug to lug? This would really be bracelet size, and this would be lug to lug strictly. But that's not how it wears. You should really count from the first link here to the bottom there, because that's really the breadth of the watch, which is about 50 mils. You usually add 2 or 3 millimeters onto the watch for that. Definitely the slimmest of the three in this video, coming in at 12.5 millimeters thick. And the dial is extremely shallow, as you can see. This is an icon, one of the most sought after watches in the world. Next up, we have the Sea Dweller in 43 mils. So 43 from here to here. This was the first Sea Dweller to have a Cyclops for the date. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of purists aren't into that. I personally don't mind it. They figured out the technology to have the Cyclops on the watch. So it's about 2.5 millimeters thicker than the sub, and of course it has the helium escape valve on this side. This is for saturation diving. That's when you're down there a long time and helium builds up inside the watch. It will escape through that valve there. Not something many of us would use. A lot of us are desk divers. Similar clasp to the Submariner, but just a little bit wider than that one, because we're starting at 22 mils here rather than 21. And of course, that famous pop of red there, Sea Dweller, as a throwback to the original 50 years previous. This one was released in 2017 to mark the 50th anniversary of the Sea Dweller. They updated things slightly, made some slight changes, and that one is now called the Mark II. This is the Mark I, considered the real McCoy, the 50th anniversary. A lot of people consider the one that came after as the 51st anniversary. I think that's a little harsh myself. Still a great watch, but a lot of people are after this particular one because of the heritage and all of that. And then, of course, we have the beast. This is the Deepsea Deep Blue Sea Dweller, also known as the James Cameron. It was made after he went down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. He brought this watch with him on that journey. So they've made the dial kind of blue, fading into a black, like you have light above, and then you head down into the blackness as you go down. A totally different thing. This is 44 mils across, a beastly 17.5 mils in thickness. This is the first of 3 generations actually of this watch, and this one has a 20 mil bracelet. So the bracelet is actually much like a previous Submariner, whereas the head is quite heavy. But this is the first generation of those watches. Again, ceramic bezel, just like the others, the platinum inserts, white gold hands and indices with the lume filled there, but just a much more beastly watch, as you can see. A beautiful hunk of steel. It's nearly 53 mils from one side to the other. So it's definitely going to be a lot more present on the wrist than the other models. The regular Submariner, of course, the perfect dive watch. It'll go down 300 meters, 1,000 feet. More than enough for most of us, I think. But once you see what the Sea Dwellers are capable of, it kind of puts it in its place. The SD43 will do 1,200 meters. That's about 4,000 feet. So it's capable of way more pressure than the Submariner. And of course, with that helium escape valve and so on, it's all built to go down to those incredible depths. A way more muscular and robust watch. But of course, if you want to really get down deep, you want to do James Cameron kind of dives, then of course the Deepsea is the one for you. This thing goes down nearly 4,000 meters. That's almost 13,000 feet. There's a barrel around the movement. You can see this kind of lip here, this steel lip where they've written that text here and here. That's actually the top of a barrel that surrounds the movement and goes straight through the watch. When you dismantle this watch, you have to pull out the barrel that has the whole movement on the inside. Put simply, the deeper you go, the more it compresses the watch, so the more it seals itself. That's how it works. So this thing is really capable of getting down deep. It's kind of an indestructible watch. Coming back to the Submariner, if we move around to the Clasp, you have a hook and beak system here for unlocking and locking the clasp, and then an extra fold over there just to seal it. But to extend the clasp, you also have the glide lock system, which disconnects like so, and you can slide it and then reconnect. It's got about 20 millimeters of extension here. It's exactly the same with the SD43. It's a wider clasp, but it works on the same principles. You can actually see how much wider it is. It's only 1 millimeter, but you can actually see it and feel it. Again, the same hook and beak system, and out she comes. And then you have the glide lock. Simply snap, change the position, tighten it up, and back in again, and you've tightened up the watch. But with the Deepsea James Cameron, you can do it with the watch still on your wrist. With the other watches, you have to take it off the wrist. So you unlock it first, and then you just get your nail under here, and it opens the clasp. And it has these kind of sawtooth connections here for extending and closing. Now you can pull the bracelet out and then reconnect that, and now you have just extended the bracelet. Or on a colder day, you can push it in and close it up and reconnect. Simple as that. You don't actually have to take the watch off to do it, which is really, really cool. This is the Submariner, and the crystal is completely flat. It doesn't refract in any way when you look at the watch from an angle. It doesn't warp what you're seeing. There's no bending of the image Obviously scratch resistant and capable of withstanding pressures in water, but nothing really in comparison to the next two watches. The SD43 is a tiny bit thicker. It's protruding ever so slightly again, completely flat. And of course, this one has the Cyclops on there to read the date. And you can see that the dial isn't quite as shallow as the Submariner. There's a bit more distance there to protect the inside of the watch. Then we come to the Deepsea. This is a very thick crystal. You can see it's slightly doming up, and in fact, it creates a little bit of warp on the dial and kind of obscures the dial from the side there. A totally different thing, of course, built to resist incredible pressures at low depths. So it's quite a different crystal from the other watches. The next thing is weight. How much do they weigh? I've got my little scales here. Let's take a look. First up is the No Date Sub, a much lighter watch than the other two. I expect it comes in around 155, 156 grams, 158. Then we have the Sea Dweller 43. What's that going to come in at? I'm guessing probably 180, 190, maybe more. 187. So significant weight difference there. You can definitely feel it. And now the beast, the James Cameron. What are we thinking? Over 200, I expect. 213. You can see certain differences. Obviously, the bezel here is a little bit cleaner. This one has all the little dots and marks on it. It's a little busier looking and a clearly larger watch. I personally see it most in the thickness of the watches. The Sub has a beautiful, elegant, slim case to it. The Sea Dweller is a chunky monkey. Until you see the Deepsea. That makes the Sea Dweller 43 look like the Sub. There's almost like the exact same difference between them. If we put the Submariner 41 right next to it, now we're beginning to see some really big differences. This is just a completely different beast. And if we turn them on their side, there is just no comparison. One is just so much thicker than the other. So how do they wear on the wrist? How do they feel on the wrist? Let's take a look. I'm going to show you the Submariner 41 first. A nice fit. Feels about right. Not huge on my wrist. Some people have this kind of slab side is overstretching, their wrist. But again, I really have a big wrist. I know you can't tell. I think this 41 is about right. It feels correct to me. And if you want to see it from this angle, that's how it looks. An absolute beauty. Let's try on the SD43. Some people think that the SD43 looks on my wrist how the Sub looks on most other guys' wrists. I tend to agree. You can see that the slab edge is coming kind of closer to the edge of my wrist, but you still have a little bit of bracelet coming out on either side. And then from this angle, you see how it is. Looks about right for my wrist, I think. But let's take a look at the beast.
He is the beast.
There she is. Whew. Big chunk of steel. I have to say, I feel like it's very top heavy as a watch. There's a lot going on. It's a little bit too thick for my taste, honestly. But yeah, I can't help but feeling like this. It's a little too top heavy. I can feel it flop from side to side. I think I would have to wear this watch very tight so it didn't move around much. But still, very nice, big, beautiful hunk of steel. And there it is, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. It's nice to see all these watches side by side and get a feel for the differences. Honestly, for me, the Sub and the ST43 feel more like what I'm into. This big, deep blue James Cameron it's a beautiful watch. It's very well made and obviously really, really built to last and resist all sorts of beatings and pressure. I think if you have an 8-inch plus wrist, maybe this is the watch for you. And I can see how these other watches might wear a tad small on you. But for me, I think the kind of sweet spot is the SD43. That out of all three watches is probably what would suit me the most. And there's all three on the wrist at the same time. Look at that. There's our comedy shot for the end of the video. I've never done this before. 3 watches, look. That suit me. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that was interesting. Nice to see all these 3 watches side by side. I will see you on the next one. Take it easy.